So we're just gonna keep that going. Let me see if I can share my screen here. All right, so this is gonna, can everybody see that?
Yeah, I can see it over here.
So we have to introduce our employer partners. Do we have any employer partners that are on the line? If you can give your name and your title and kind of what you do at the organization.
I'll hop right in. Hello, everybody. My name is Keon Rayford. I am an executive team leader with Target in Toledo, Ohio. And my area of specialization is in service and engagement. So I spend a lot of time interacting with our guests, our communities, and collegiate universities as well.
Hi, I'm Kim Francis Angelo with Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. I am a recruiting manager and involved in all things hiring, interviewing, and placing of associates at our park.
Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney. I am also with Target. I am a human resources ETL in Canton, Michigan, but I am a University of Toledo alumni, so I'm really excited to be here with all of you today.
Eric Jones, representing Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans and family of companies as well. Happy to be here as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hillary Kessler. I'm with Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. I am part of our talent acquisition team focusing on our strategic digital recruitment efforts, and then also college recruitment and university partnerships.
Great, well, welcome. So today we've had such a pack. Is there anybody else I'm missing?
Oh, hi guys, it's Taylor. I'm with Joanne Fabrics over in Hudson, Ohio. I'm our talent acquisition manager. So deal with everything recruiting, and in particular, really close to our internship program and entry-level recruiting as well. So thank you guys for having us.
This is Lakira. I'm also with Target as an HR ETL in Toledo, Ohio.
Great. So today we've had a jam-packed day talking about negotiating, resumes, interviewing, LinkedIn, and now I think we're just going to tie it all together to see what is that package, what are supervisors looking for, and just to give students some advice on moving forward. And definitely we want to touch base on the situation we're in now with the pandemic. So any advice that the employers can give on just kind of delivering that package would be great. Let's see what questions we have. So this is just straightforward. What are employers looking for in a candidate? If you can give some just some background on that, that would be great.
So I can start. So like I said earlier, I work for Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. We're looking for a lot of different things. Mostly, I think the easiest thing to just, tell college students and new grads is we're looking for people who align with our mission, vision, and values. So, there's a lot of different jobs you can apply for. There's a lot that you may be overqualified for, underqualified, but really that main piece, obviously if you're going to be in the clinical environment or provider, you need to probably have those specific licenses and experience, whatever. But if you are just here for the big picture, we're really wanting to hire people who want to be involved in the community, who really want to make an impact on patient care and supporting our patients and families, not just in Columbus, but all over the world. We really thrive on, we call a one team environment. So to a fault, sometimes I think we are over collaborative. So we're looking for those types of people, even if you are a very independent type of worker, that still understands the importance of, kind of a one team environment. And that's kind of our overall, what we're looking for. Obviously, each department or area has their own culture too. But I think cultures are a big piece. You know, there's going to be a lot of people who have the same qualifications and skills and experience, but to me, those are what really jump out and what keeps a candidate, you know, at the top of the list when they talk about those things that are outside the job description that are so important, which again is, you know, really, why are you here? What are you looking to do? How can you add value?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of how important culture is. I think, of course, relevant experience is always wonderful when you're applying to it. And I think, especially, you know, college grads, we're leaning into potential so much, and the culture fit is such a big part of that. And I mean, for Joey, and the heart of everything that we do is creativity and inspiring that creativity. And I think that comes curiosity, a willingness to learn, come in and be excited about that experience as well. Is something that we particularly look for in our college grads that are entering the workforce.
At Cedar Point, we are definitely looking for individuals who who focus on customer service and the customer experience. We want and hope to have people that want to grow with us and continue to develop with us. Year after year, we bring back a lot of the same people and continue to promote them from within. And also throughout the entire year, we do, even though we're only open seasonally, we do have many full-time workers that work throughout the year in our upper management. So people that are looking to, you know, that enjoy the atmosphere of entertainment, that can put customers first and have the willingness and the drive to grow.
I would agree with everything that's been said so far. I think the other component to add to that are people that are curious, that are looking for growth. If you're staying the same, you're not growing, you're not achieving any goals, you're not striving to be better yourself. So we're actually looking for individuals that are self-motivated, or go-getters, that aren't afraid to make mistakes and know that you know, you're going to get better from the things that you make mistakes on and the failures that you have.
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Oh my gosh, I'm having so many struggles today, guys. I so apologize. So I didn't get a chance to introduce myself. I am Cherise Colson. I'm a human resources business partner for Target, here with Kian, Kai, and Courtney. But one of the things I just wanted to say, and I think everybody has already pointed out a lot of good things. One of the things that we always look for when we're interviewing or just candidates is what I like to call like your superpower. So like, what's that unique individual thing that you're going to bring to our company, whether it's from another company that you've learned or just like your personal life. We just really like individuals because we think that's what makes the makeup of our company so great, is that people are truly themselves and can be themselves, and we don't all fit a cutter example of what it means to be a Target employee. But I think knowing your superpower and having that superpower and being able to talk to that is really important, and what I love to hear from people.
I think Sharisha made some really good points. Like, I think one thing that I have been able to do, and I think it's really nice when you're talking to jobs, is if you really, really, really know yourself and you can really talk to your attributes and the things that really make you happy, and you can tie that into the company's view, like, it just shows you have a very passionate person, and that passion makes us want to hire you. Like, we want to, you know, it gets us excited, I guess. Maybe not want to hire, but it gets us literally excited to keep interviewing you and keep talking to you about all the things that you're excited about.
Devin, do we have any questions from the chat?
Not at the moment.
All right, we'll move on to the next questions. That's some really good insight. How can a candidate relate their transferable skills to an employer?
Hey, this is Courtney from Target. I actually touched on this in one of the earlier panels, and I spoke about how when an applicant is applying for a new job, they should use their resume as a malleable document. So they should pull out keywords and skills out of the job description that they meet the needs of, and make sure that those are included in their resume to help them stand out for the recruiter.
So something that I do, and maybe I'm just a weirdo, I don't know, is I kind of do two different things. So when I see a job description, and I do this with my role is, I mean, it's kind of just a lot of different pieces combined. But when I see a job posting, I always look for what that posting is in other organizations too, because another organization might have the same job, just a different title, or it may have other like duties or tasks that are in there, but it's essentially the same role. So if I'm not seeing anything like I'm really interested in this job, but I'm not seeing how my experience might relate, I could find those pieces in another job description. Again, the same type of role, just a different company, and tailor it so it includes those. Kind of in the same way, like when I think of, I'm really tough when I'm trying to think of things that I'm good at or my skills. So using things like a skills finder, or, taking those, reading some of those books that talk about, finding what you're good at, or like the Enneagram test. I know this sounds like so silly and I'm such a millennial for bringing this up, but when I read these things, I'm like, oh, that is me. But I would have never thought of that on my own. It just took me seeing other pieces of, hey, no, I have done that. I can talk about that. I think that's helpful because there's a lot of times where, you might just be totally lost and how does this work? But then, on another avenue, it's also on the employer. So we're doing a lot with, military and veteran recruitment. And a lot of times, depending on where your experience is, it's hard for you to even understand, if you're a sergeant in the Army, a lot of those skills could transfer over into the roles that we have, but it's hard for you to explain what those might be. So that's a great time to, work with your career services or pair up with a recruiter to identify some of those too. I don't know. I think it's just hard to really pick out those things about yourself when you're so new to the workforce and not really sure what exactly this job is looking for, or the hiring manager, because everyone, has such varying ideas. But there's so many different ways that you can at least build a baseline for it, or build a base and then build upon that depending on what's needed.
Yeah, I would definitely second that, Hillary. Some of the things that you were talking about is I'm really big with our students and our staff too, just on self-reflection. And I'm a strengths coach, so I talk about what your strengths are and just doing some of those assessments where you can find out some more about yourself so you can help relate that to employers. So I think that's really important because we don't always see us in that light. So I appreciate you saying that. Do we have any other comments? All right, let's move on to the next one. How can candidates stand out to an employer? What are the top desired skills? Ooh, this is a good one.
I think that leadership is huge, and by having experience, whether they're organizations that you're involved in, you take on different roles, kind of showing that you can be a leader, even if it's in small ways. If you're on a sports team or a club sports team, or relating the fact that you can work as a team and you can work together with people, and regardless of the outcome, you're all working together and that you are a team player, I think is really important.
Yeah, I think on top of that too, first impression is super important as well, whether you're meeting us at a career fair or your resume, or it's the first time talking with you on the phone. I think a lot of times with, fresh graduates, there's a shyness that comes out, or extreme nervousness. And I know it's hard not to get there. But what does stand out is when someone is confident and collected when you're talking to them, and it's like, okay, they might be new to the workforce, but they're not going to have a problem asking questions. They're not going to have a problem getting up out of their seat and connecting with people in the office. And that's something that for sure stands out as someone who has a ton of potential to create the right relationships so that they get themselves in front of the right information to learn more in the first few weeks, months of their career with us.
I think I said this earlier, but just being present. Like, there's so much going on in the world, and your phone's always ringing and your watch might be going off, and there's just so many different things. And especially now with the pandemic and everything, really just being present in that moment is so important to me and to our hiring managers, because we know there are a million things going on and this might not be the most important to you right now, but the fact that you are taking the time and you're utilizing, our time really just shows that you're invested and you're engaged. And it seems so simple, but that's something that really has such an impact that you kind of don't even think about when you're trying to prepare and process these things, because it just seems like the new normal, like there's everything's going on and no one's ever slow. And, there's my neighbor from Russia and she says it's the American lifestyle, but I think it's just really kind of remembering that while you're in interviews or you're talking with, your potential future employer, to just be present. Very simple, but an easy one.
I think, and she kind of hit on it, but with the pandemic going on, I think adaptability and flexibility, a lot of companies are moving in different directions. Like I would use my company, for example, Target. It is a very, very, very changing industry and a very changing business. I think at one point I read something in the company that said like change ignites us or something like that. And I think if you are somebody who in an interview, you can speak to the fact that, I'm very adaptable. I've done these different things. I can change directions. And I think it speaks volumes, especially in the retail environment, especially, you mix that with a little bit of leadership. That is kind of what almost being a retail manager is changing directions quickly.
Question from the chat. We have from Santos. They asked, what boss or hiring manager, what does a hiring manager or boss look at when a fresh graduate who doesn't have any kind of experience at that particular position?
I think for me, in like the interviews I've talked to, and like if I look at your resume and I notice that, I think the question I would ask is like, what were you doing with that time? So to answer the question, like I would specifically ask that person, so I looked at your resume, I said we don't have a lot of job history, maybe not a lot of organizations or things that necessarily apply for our business. What kinds of things were you doing in college? Like I want to understand what was that time being used to do?
I think for us, it's the fact that you want to just absorb and be a part of as much as you can. So this was truly like my first real job when I graduated. And for so many like of my coworkers and, people that I've worked with along the way, it's the fact that they were ready to come in and say, I'll do, whatever. I am willing to jump in on this other project. I'm willing to, help with this, do things that fall outside of your job description, because that's like reality. A lot of times the job you're seeing online is like, that's not all that's there. And in our case, like our job descriptions are terrible. Like they're very broad and vague, and like I'm all about transparency. So I'll tell you that like that's what we are. But for a manager to see someone as a new grad come in who might not have a ton of experience, but is just excited and willing to put in the extra work to problem solve on their own, do some of those projects that maybe someone else really just didn't want to do, but have a positive attitude of, hey, I'm going to learn something from this, even though if it's the last thing that I really wanted to do. I think that's important. And then for us too, it's like no one's better than anyone else. So I think, and in a good way and kind of a bad way, like a lot of people now have their bachelor's degree. So it doesn't really matter where you went to school or what you did. Everyone's kind of on this like same playing field. So there are times where, we see new grads come in almost with a chip on their shoulder. And I really would want to encourage people to be confident in, everything that you've accomplished, because it really it's a big deal. But also just know that you're not better than anyone else. And we're all here because who knows, like you might have to pick up something off the floor, or like that's something that's really important to us. Like if you see some trash on the floor, pick it up. You're not, don't just walk past that. So a lot of those things, like obviously you can't put that on your resume, but in conversations with a recruiter or with a hiring manager, like that's really what we're looking for, you know? Be a sponge, be excited, be willing to do the stuff that people don't want to do, and be excited and positive about it. It seems, again, kind of basic, but I think, you know, that's what people want. And if you're not that type of person, totally fine. But maybe, you know, working at a pediatric hospital is not the right place for you, and that's okay. But just knowing that, you know, things that you do want and things that you don't want, so you don't have to fake it, is kind of a good place to start.
Yeah, I would even add to that, and you made some really good points, Hillary, is that the excitement's coming from a genuine place. So make sure that you are targeting, you know, the companies that you want to be at, or that, you know, you are excited about that brand and connect with that brand too. And I think we see it a lot when we're like hiring a Joanne store manager, and I'll be like, okay, do you craft? And someone could be like, no, but I really want to, and they could really genuinely want to be involved in that and excited. Or someone could have their own Etsy shop and run a business, but if they don't, you know, show up with that genuine passion in the interview, in that way, it's not telling us that they're going to be a great brand ambassador for our organization. So make sure that that excitement is also coming from a genuine place, because you would hate to get a job and then, you know, it's not what everyone signed up for too. So I think that's really important.
I would also add to all of that, that if there is a role that you may not have experience in, do your work on the company, do your work on that role, and be able to really support and stand behind why you want to do that and what it is about that particular position that excites you and draws your attention. Maybe try to relate, you know, maybe you've been exposed to it in different ways, or you've shadowed, or you've done a lot of research on your own, but just showing that you've put in that extra effort, that it's not just a position that you're applying to blindly. You know, being able to back that up, whether it's in a cover letter and just kind of explaining that and coming right out saying, you know, I may not have any formal experience, but I've done a ton of research. I know this is the field for me. I'm willing to take any opportunity at any level to come in and get my feet wet, and then I will show you that I'm able to grow into it.
I think some of the most powerful interviews I've ever had, and again, like I got into this for the feel good piece. I like being able to help people and know that, you know, I've made an impact on their life. But so I interviewed this woman for an administrative assistant position, and it's pretty much what I tell a lot of new grads, like, look at these admin support roles that helps you learn the hospital and figure out what you like, what you don't like. So I was interviewing her, and she was telling me why she was so passionate about the hospital. So our, you know, many years ago, our organization saved her daughter's life. And like, obviously those are really touching things to me. And, you know, I think before I said, be careful, like don't share too much, because you don't want to use that, you know, have an unconscious bias for that. But then we ended her interview, and I felt like I was just, like I had to give her some feedback. And I was like, you know, I don't think that this role specifically, this department, is the best fit for you. And she looked at me and was like, I will scrub toilets. She was like, I just want to work here so bad because of what everyone did to save my daughter's life, and I want to be a part of that. And I was like almost in tears, and I was like, I'll hire you to be our CEO. I won't hire you to be an admin too. But like, those are the types of things that really have stuck with me. And when I, you know, come across these candidates and they're showing those things, even if they're not like the right fit for this role, regardless of their qualifications or their skills, it makes me want to try even harder to find the right fit for this, because I know the impact that they're going to have and how important it could be.
Yeah, those are some really great points, and I try to tell students too, and I know the whole, you know, career services philosophy is just try to be yourself as much as possible. You know, if you walk into an interview too and they have a University of Toledo mug and you graduated and say, hey, I'm a Rockets, you know, just to kind of get the conversation started. I think that most interviews are nerve-wracking, and just to kind of put your personality in there a little bit really helps the conversation. Oops. What discourages employers from hiring a candidate? Good question.
For me personally, I think that when someone is talking about previous employers in a negative light, even if they start off by saying, I don't want to make them sound bad, but, and then they continue down that path, it's something that shows your maturity and your professionalism to be able to very gently skim the surface. And here in our world and in the professional world, I think it's understood that everyone knows that there are bad employers out there, but it's going into the details and the stories. Those are things that we don't need to know. We want to see that you're better than that you're bigger than that, and you're wanting to move forward.
I think in addition to what she just said, a lot of people have said it, but like the opposite side of it is like if someone wasn't being present in an interview or like in a conversation, like you can kind of tell those things. So we all have intentional conversations daily, just whether that's with current staff or people we're looking to hire. And when you're talking to an applicant or somebody who, quote unquote, wants to work for you or work there, and you feel as though, maybe your words or your time isn't being valued, we're people just like, everybody else is people. I just, I know from working, I know a lot of you guys would agree the time that we have is very valuable. And if we're going to spend 30 minutes to an hour sitting down with you, we want to know that we are also not wasting our time as well. And I think sometimes I've been in positions where I feel like the interviewee, kind of came in there with, maybe some things going on or just, maybe outside life things that made it to where they weren't really able to be present for that time that I had with them.
I would say a big one for me is email etiquette. A lot of times that is first impression. And sometimes I would say 9 out of 10 times I can tell how an interview is going to go or if an interview is going to go based on how the emails we exchanged when scheduling the interview was. If it's like, hi, yep, available at 4, no thank you, no signature, I'm like, all right, this might be a really short and sweet conversation. If someone's like so excited for the opportunity, thank you for reaching out. Here's all of my availability. Let me know if I need to be flexible. I'm like, awesome. This person's really excited about this opportunity. And typically in emails, sometimes the first impression that we get of you when we're reaching out for an interview after you've applied. So I think that's really our first true interaction. And I think it's so important and says a lot. And that goes to say the same thing with thank you email. If it's a really close draw between candidates, hiring managers will show up to our hiring conversation and be like, man, Kayla really sent a really, really wonderful thank you email, and that just really stood out to me. And sometimes that's the deciding factor in a hiring case. So I'd say email etiquette is absolutely.
I would say being genuine. If you ask a question, right, and their resume is saying that they can do A, B, C, and D, and you ask them an in-depth question, we do a lot of behavioral-based questions. So it's like, tell me about a time when, and they answer some of those questions about their own experience. It makes me start to doubt, are they a person that is executing, or are they an individual just telling me what I want to hear? And then once they get on board with us, I put them in situations that should be familiar to them, and they're not able to execute or accomplish those goals. So I would say, hey, if you don't know, say you don't know, but you're eager and willing to learn. I would definitely take a look at a student or any person from that matter that has the aptitude and the mentality of, hey, I'm going to be successful. I'll do whatever it takes to be successful and get to that point, versus the person that feels like they've arrived and know it all, and then you put them in a situation and they crack.
Something else I think that can potentially discourage an employer is kind of what the interaction looks like even before you guys sit down for the interview. So that's with like being on time, how you treated the other employees while you were waiting to be interviewed. Are you smiling? Are you making eye contact? Are you dressed appropriately? So a lot of times what happens even before you sit down for the interview can have a great impact on what the outcome is from the interview.
So to kind of piggyback off of that, when you are looking for a new job, almost every interaction you have could be an interview. So whether that is something you post online or the first person you meet when you walk into a building, those are all things that, regardless of the size of your organization or the organization you're interviewing for, you might not know the different connections that people have. And there have been a lot of times where, unfortunately, you know, I send over a candidate to a manager, they tell me they're interested. I'm about to call them or email them to schedule an interview. The manager will call me and say, I just looked them up on Facebook and they have X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, first of all, you shouldn't really be doing that. Second of all, you know, we can't not interview them because of that. But unfortunately, that they already have a bad taste in that manager's mouth. So like they're not going to want to move forward with them, even if they totally knock it out of the park. So just to really understand that this digital world we're living in and be careful, but also it can be really helpful when you are looking for a job. You know, there's been so many times too where we've had like our senior leaders have reached out and said, hey, I know so-and-so from whatever, my neighbor's best friend's kid's son, or I don't, things like that. And then we already know coming into that, you know, they might not have all the qualifications or the, you know, the best skills, but they are viewed highly as a person and we want to spend time on them. So it kind of goes both ways, but truly that is like one way to just totally blackball yourself before you even get in the door if you really are not acting respectfully online or in person, and just understanding, you know, kind of where you're at, what your brand is saying about you.
Kind of jump in on and to add to your digital aspect, I would also say that one of the first impressions is also what your email address is that you're using. So if you currently have an email address that is, you know, cool kids, I don't know, skateboarding or whatever, get a new account, change it up, make it your name, make it your first name dot last name at Gmail. You won't be using your school addresses after you graduate. So just make sure whatever email address you're putting onto your resume or into any kind of job information, that is also going to be looked at, and it does represent who you are and whether you could be professional and really show the brand. And you know, if you were to get hired, you are going to represent that brand. And so the brand is comfortable with you being professional. That's just one thing you can do that's really simple that takes away someone coming in and already having, you know, already an idea as to who or what you could be.
Those are my favorite to read out loud. And I'm confirming, like, so I'm going to send a confirmation email to, and then it's just really quiet. And then we're both really awkwardly uncomfortable.
Yep.
I'm really happy that everybody's bringing up the digital world, because we in career services, as many of you know, just talk about this in every single day, talking about your online brand and what it says about you. And we've even had some employers that have emailed the institution saying, hey, if we see, you know, you might want to tell students, if we see students now in large crowds and they're not listening to what the governor's saying, then we're not going to hire them, because that just shows that they're not listening to orders. And you know, just trying to give advice for students. And I can't say it enough that it could deter employers from hiring you if and what you have on your social media. So thank you for bringing that up.
I think, Shannon, you're bringing up a really good point, and Target in particular, and Shannon has seen a lot of this. Also, the flip side of that, you know, using social media in a positive way to either promote your brand. You know, you guys are in college, and, you know, it's something I wish I knew while I was in college, actually. But those first 10 years of graduation, you know, that's a really great time to rebrand your social media and truly showcase, you know, what you want people to know, especially with it being 2020. And a lot of the interviewers people you're interviewing with have social media, so you can utilize that and show them the kind of things you do. Like, for example, I'm going to put quotes on this, my Target Twitter is just chock full of literally like dozens and dozens of different things we've done with different universities, different volunteers. And when I have talked to people in Target, higher ups, about the things I've done, I literally show them that page, and in a really quick way, I'm able to show them tons of things I've done over the last year or two that are, you know, in my realm, rather than just sitting here talking at them. So just using social media to your guys' benefit. I mean, you guys are truly the generation that can do that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see what else. Ooh, how much personal information should a candidate share?
So I think one of the earlier sessions, there was a question that said, tell me about yourself. And I know some people like it and some people don't. And I think someone, I don't remember who, but made a good point of like kind of mirroring what the person you're interview with is sharing. And if you didn't hear me say this earlier, or if you did, sorry, but I think it's really important just to be aware of what you're sharing. And a lot of times, you know, I wouldn't expect a new anyone to know this outside of recruiting, but there are times where things that you say, unfortunately, may not be seen in a positive light. So as recruiters and human resources, and truly, I think as professionals, you know, we're not looking at how many kids you have, or if you have, you know, this health condition, if you can complete the job. We're looking, do you have the minimum qualifications and the skills to be successful in this role? But a lot of times if you know, you may get to a hiring manager who hasn't had the HR training that we have or understand the environment. And by saying something like, I have, you know, 3 kids and we travel all of the time because they are in travel soccer and travel baseball and all of these different things. Unfortunately, sometimes to a hiring manager, their perception is that you won't have the time or the energy to really do what's needed in this role. And like, that sounds really terrible and I hate that, but sometimes it does like, those are some of those conversations that I unfortunately have to have with those managers. And then I reel them back in real quick. Well, unfortunately, you can't assess their ability to do the job on those things. But that does happen. And I would just hate for that to put you as a candidate, you know, on a path to not be considered because you just didn't know that kind of a backstory behind it. So I hope that's helpful. But I think sharing as much as you can in relation to the role, and then it's of course okay to like sprinkle in a couple personal things because it shows you're a real person and you're authentic. But there are some things, so like if there's like a list or there's different things you can look up, but it'll tell you that, you know, these are things you might not want to share in an interview because they could be viewed, you know, in a negative light, even though you could be saying it in a totally positive way. There's always, you know, perception is just different among so many different people. And I think that's what, you know, makes everyone so great is you see things from different light, but unfortunately sharing too much sometimes is not good.
So too, for students, I know my first position or my first interview really out of college was at a higher ed institution, and they flew me in there at night, and we had dinner and breakfast. So it was a whole 2-day interview process, which happens a lot in academia. So just to be aware too, because those are all interviews. So I was on the plane in a suit, and I walked off the plane in a suit. And when we're eating, we're having more of a casual conversation. It's not necessarily tell me about yourself, tell me about a time in this. It's not the formal interview, but you still, I would reiterate what Hillary was saying, just to be careful and cognizant of what you're saying, but to be able to add some personal touches in there as well too. All right, let's see if we have any other questions. Davlin, do we have any other questions?
I don't, but I do want to add to what you were just saying about the multiple day interview and being dressed appropriately. You mentioned that you were dressed appropriately for that first day, but I have witnessed several situations where candidates were not dressed appropriately their first day. So if they're traveling or what have you, they're in jeans, t-shirts, and shorts and things. Their attitude, in a sense, is different. They're not thinking about the entire process as an interview. And I would definitely say for students who know that they're going to be a part of a multiple day interview, or you're going to go to something that may not be as formal as a 2-person interview process or interview panel process, you'll eat or going to dinner, what have you, just know that the entire process is your interview. So making sure you're dressing appropriately on flights, on travel there. You want to make sure that you're speaking properly and using the correct English and being a part of the entire process instead of it just being the normal traditional part of the interview is when you're on, if you will, or on from the time you leave your house to the time you get back home. And then as you've mentioned before, all of the employers about your email communications as well. So the entire process is the interview, not just the one meeting time for your interview. But no questions.
Yeah, and when I was looking back to that situation, I was just thinking, and I didn't know what to do in that situation because I've never been in that situation. So I asked my mentor. I remember calling one of my mentors and saying, "I'm in this situation." They're like, "Yes, wear a suit on the plane. You get off, they get you. You're in your professional wear." So I would have never have known that just coming right out of college. So the moral is to ask questions. Visit career services, reach out to all the employers that are on here via LinkedIn and ask them questions. You're not going to know everything graduating, and you might not even know everything going into your second job, but just ask because we're here to help you for sure. All right, if you are graduating, you haven't got the first destination survey, please fill it out. This is a great way for us to learn where you're at, what you're doing, and us to just be better based on the knowledge that we get from these surveys. So please fill out the first destination survey, and you can go to our website or you can email us to do that. And again, employers, I cannot thank you enough. You have been rock stars today. We thank you. We look forward to helping recruit this summer and next year, and we are excited about this partnership. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay healthy.
Stay safe. Yes.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.